Well, Penn State is going to have a very different looking roster this year. That's partly what happens when you bring in a brand new head coach like Matt Campbell. They did have 4 straight wins to end the season last year, so a little bit of momentum. And they like Campbell, a big name get for them. But look at that middle dot there. 23 commits are coming along with Campbell to Penn State from Iowa State. And Matt Campbell is joining us now to talk about his first Penn State recruiting class. Matt, give me something that has surprised you in these first few weeks as the Penn State head coach.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing just for me has been the outpouring of support of this community, our former players, former coaches. It's really been overwhelming, and you're just really grateful for the support this program has.
Well, you mentioned former players. That is the headline with your incoming class. More than 20 guys from Ames are following you on over to Penn State. How did you know that certain players who fit for you at Iowa State were also going to fit in a different culture, a different town, a different part of the country at Penn State?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I really think the beginning piece of it for us was getting here into Penn State and finding out who was going to stay of our Penn State football team. Obviously, this roster had been picked at for 3 months prior to us coming there. And to be honest, the biggest wins initially were to keep some of our great players home. And we were really fortunate to be able to do that. And I think the next part was, how do you build a team around that? And, I think we were super fortunate that a lot of our Penn State players, number one, believed in us enough to be able to move and want to come be a part of what we had built at Iowa State, and now we're beginning to build at Penn State. Our philosophy of caring about kids, building team, building culture, those things aren't changing. Obviously where we're at and certainly our location changes, but how we believe in building a football team isn't going to change. And so we're really appreciative those young men and their families believe in us.
You've trusted Rocco Beck to start for you at QB for a long time now. How do you describe him?
Oh, I would say the words to me are tough, character, and grit. I think he's one of those guys for me that's one of the toughest young men I've ever been around, both mentally and physically. And he's a guy that gives his team a chance to win each and every Saturday. I think he's proved that over 3 years, is his ability in the greatest moments and most critical moments. I think he's got 9 wins on the last drive of a game during his career. And he's a guy that's proven with the ball in his hand at the end of the football game, there's nobody else you want with the ball. And he's been able to do it. And who he is off the field on top of it is really special.
He's got an offensive buddy or two joining, like tight end Benjamin Bramer. What should Penn State fans know about him?
Yeah, Ben is one of those really special players. Ben's a young man, again, that started as a true freshman for us at Iowa State, with a Mackey Award finalist a year ago. And he's a guy that just has grown so much in his first 3 years in college football. He's an elite wide receiver with his ability on the edge and the perimeter to make plays, but he's also become this great inline tight end. His ability to block, physical at the point of attack. He can do it all, and he can do it all in a really special way.
Matt, how have you changed over the years when it comes to your approach to the portal?
Yeah, I think you had to change with the times. I think to me, it's been such a foreign entity a little bit, just even during our time at Iowa State. I think player retention has always been and will continue to be so critical to us building a football program. But I think what we were able to do even during our times at Iowa State was to be able to fill in the gaps at times between, the age and experience of our football team. And you saw that with Jaden Higgins, who had an unbelievable career at Iowa State. You saw us be able to use that portal in a positive way. And I think as this experience certainly happened, we had to use it a lot more than maybe what we have in the past.
Matt, you're a new head coach in the Big Ten, and a couple years ago there was a new head coach in the league who grabbed a microphone and proudly said, Purdue sucks, and so does Michigan, and so does Ohio State, and 2 years later he won the national title. So if you'd like to take this opportunity to insult somebody here, go ahead.
No, I won't do that. Obviously, we have a lot of respect for all the great coaches in this league, and we know the success of all the programs, and certainly over the last couple of years, I think my biggest thing has always been to worry about myself, to worry about our own program, and become the best version of ourselves we can be. And we know that the power of Penn State, when it's aligned at its finest, has a chance to be one of the best programs in all of college football. And we're going to work really hard to bring that standard of excellence back to this program.
Missed opportunity, Matt. It was right there for the taking. Matt, thanks so much for joining us, man. Congratulations on getting the gig, too.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we talked about Rocco Beck, the incoming quarterback. And when we say he's experienced, let me give you some perspective on this. In 2026, he will be the most experienced returning Power 4 starter in the country.
And that's impressive. And I'll tell you why it's really important when you start to think about at the quarterback position. He has to really endear himself to this team immediately. And when you think about what he was able to do at his previous stop, the toughness that he showed, the ability to have those fourth quarter comebacks leading his team, being tough, being able to run the football, that's the quickest way to make it happen. And he'll be able to have that opportunity when he is in camp to make plays like that. And that's going to be a big part of who he is. He'll have an opportunity to hand it off to James Peoples. And this is a guy I really liked when he was at Ohio State. Really did a tremendous job, not just only running the football, but I thought he did a good job pass protecting. He now has a new leash on life, having an opportunity to step in at Penn State, where we know there have been some outstanding running backs in the recent years. He'll have a chance to compete and a chance to put up some numbers.
One position Penn State's been really good at, tight end, and if you look at the success Matt Campbell and his staff had at that position at Iowa State, I don't expect that to change with them in Happy Valley. Benjamin Bramer was a guy who was committed to Nebraska, high school wide receiver who, as Coach Campbell mentioned, they did a great job of developing him into a full-time tight end. He's not just a pass catcher anymore, 6'7", 255 pounds. And then this is something they did a lot at Iowa State, is find sleepers like Elijah Reeder. He's from New Jersey, had very few schools recruiting him. Iowa State, I think, was his first Power 4 offer, but filled the stat sheet as a senior, had 8 sacks. They compared him a lot to Will McDonald in play style and the fact that very few schools were recruiting him. Get used to them finding those kind of guys at Penn State. And then Jackson Ford, I think this is one of the best stories because when we talked about this class in the first signing period, the early signing period, they really only had one holdover. It was Jackson Ford, a guy who committed to them, stayed committed, didn't want to be anywhere else but Penn State, and was rewarded for that 4-star guy, 6'4", 240 pounds, but really kind of a cool recruitment story for him.
This is such an interesting case with this head coach, Howard, because Matt Campbell could have taken a bunch of jobs. For the last 4 or 5 years, he almost had his pick of the litter if he wanted.
It's true.
But he chose Penn State. How are things going to be different for him, you think, under this different situation?
Well, I think when you look at just his history at Iowa State, this was a situation where they had to create a lot of their own buzz at Iowa State. And what I thought he did a tremendous job was being able to evaluate the players that he was bringing into the program, because the resources weren't there as they were at some other places. And he put some good teams together, really built an outstanding program. Now, being in a program that has the type of resources that Penn State has, I expect him really to be able to take off and really do some special things at Happy Valley.
We mentioned earlier, it's interesting to watch what Curt Cignetti does now that he's proven he's good, but he's adding these top-tier players. We saw Matt Campbell do at Iowa State an awful lot. Yeah. Now with the Penn State resources, it'll be interesting to see what he can do there.
He's the player of the year in the state of Arkansas. He is incredibly accurate. He threw for 91 touchdowns in 2 years and led him to a state championship at 13-0. So you talk about a leader, a winner.
Drake Lindsey lost it. End zone. Touchdown, Gophers. Lindsey floats it back in the end zone. Caught. Touchdown, Gophers. Lindsey gonna take it himself for the win.
Lindsey, a guy who made a big impact with PJ Fleck and the Gophers right away. This class they're bringing in now as good as they've ever had. 26th in the country. Very impressive for PJ Fleck. Here's what he had to say back on the first signing day.
We're going on year 10 coming up here. So, when you look at it, it's all about fit and selection. As you've been here 9 years, you know what really fits, what doesn't work, what the formula for Minnesota has been to create cultural sustainability over a lot of years. And then you go apply that. I think our recruiting staff does an amazing job of understanding that concept, as well as our coaches as well. So I think that was one of the big reasons why that we've had the best class since we've been here, which we're really, really proud of.
When we talked with him back then, PJ Fleck talked about this class and it being very good, 26th, as good as it comes. Very nice transfer class as well. Aiden H., a guy from Indiana, the second best player in the state. But an in-state guy stood out to me, and that's defensive lineman Howie Johnson. I wrote down the quote that PJ told me. He was talking about how much football is on the mind of Howie Johnson. He said, he's as tough as they come, and I ask him, what are you going to eat? He says, football. That's how much he's focused on the sport he loves. Why is he good at the sport he loves?
Well, first of all, Minnesota's done a fantastic job of keeping top talent in state. We mentioned, Coy Parrish transferring out earlier, but they had to get him in his recruitment, and they've done a great job recruiting in-state kids. This guy is in the backfield just about every play that you look up. How about 88 tackles for loss in his high school career? We had to make sure that that was the correct statistic, because that is just a ridiculous number. Very explosive, plays very, very hard, and I think can come in and make an immediate impact inside. Braden Stevens, not one of the guys who was highest ranked in the class, but you look at this guy, extremely fast on the track, ran, sub 11, ran 10.5 in the 100-meter dash, had well over 1,000 yards as a senior. This was a guy they were able to find, was committed to South Dakota State. Really, really good eval job by the class. I think he's going to touch the ball in a lot of different ways, including maybe special teams.
Justin Hopkins, he plays the corner position. You see him there coming down, really in the slot or the safety spot. Really has an ability, I think, does a great job of diagnosing plays. You see him being able to change directions, fall back in for the tackle there, playing the safety position here, really diagnoses, understands, and reads the quarterback's eyes, and can be able to make the plays at the point of attack. I think he's one of those guys that will be able to be developed into that program. I think when you think of Estrad, I think it's the type of player that when you think about running backs at Minnesota, these are guys that may not look flashy on film, but what you see is production. And that's what they're getting out of this type of player. Really like the way he's able to burst through the hole, but it's the production and being able to be available is what will help this young man really continue to flourish at Minnesota.
Yeah, Ryan Estrada is a guy they went down to Texas to get as a top 500 player overall. But to your point, Alan, at the beginning about staying in state, Howie Johnson, the top guy in their state, 3 of the top 4 players from the state of Minnesota are staying in state to be Gophers. Not far away from Minnesota sits the state of Iowa, and we look at their class. It's another top 30 class for Kirk Ferentz and company, top 10 in the league. Their strength is more in this incoming freshman class than it is necessarily in the transfer portal. And some of the guys to stand out here includes a quarterback, Trayden Bessinger, and the reason he stands out is he is the second highest ranked quarterback to commit to Iowa in the modern era.
Yeah, and they got him late. He was committed to Boise State for much of the process. Iowa continued to recruit him, got him flipped around late in the process. You look at his high school stats, over 10,000 career yards and 127 touchdowns. Very low interception numbers, takes really, really good care of the ball. A guy who can move around a little bit in the pocket, make some plays happen with his feet as well, played basketball. So a very, very good athlete. They needed a true guy in this class, and they got a really, really good one there. Jack Janda was committed to Wisconsin. See him committed as a tight end to the Badgers, but he's going to play interior defensive line for the Hawkeyes, and as a senior was really, really good on that side of the ball. 6'5" frame. They're going to be able to put weight on him. I think he's going to end up playing the 3 tech, but can play outside a little bit too. But big piece of why Detroit Catholic Central won a state title this season. And then Hudson Parliament, all-name team for one thing, but also just you look at the profile. This is just an Iowa-type recruit, a power lifter, a guy who played both sides of the ball, 3-time All-State, big, physical, strong guy, 6'4", 320 pounds. Going to probably be an interior guy, a guard at the next level.
Nielsen is a player, you think about the offensive line and the history of being able to have these type of guys that can make plays. He's one of those guys. I think he plays with nice pad level. You see him destroying his competition. He's a guy that I think is going to continue to develop. Whether he's at the left tackle spot remains to be seen, but this is a young man that I think has all the attributes of being an outstanding offensive lineman and really to be in that mold of what they've been able to do. Julian Manson is another player. You talk about linebackers. This is another one of those programs where they do a great job of developing guys, bringing them up through special teams and also being able to take over. But I really like his ability. Look at him at the point of attack, being able to shed tacklers and being able to run to be able to make plays. These are some of the things that you really like to see in young players when they're able to engage and then disengage and go make a play.
We talked a moment ago about the importance of Minnesota keeping their best in-state players. Same thing with Iowa. Those last two guys Howard was talking about, number 1 and number 2 players from the state of Iowa, staying to be Hawkeyes.